Both Modi and Trump want to protect farmers, but their protection has very different meanings. One protects half a billion vulnerable livelihoods, the other protects a small but politically powerful voting bloc. And when both these worlds collide, the trade deals fall apart. Welcome to Swapnil Karkare Podcast, Economic Insights on India. I'm your host Swapnil Karkare, a chartered accountant and an economist. Today we will look at why agriculture matters but differently for India and USA and why this mismatch derailed our talks. But before that, don't forget to like this episode, share this episode, and subscribe to the channel. We need to understand something very fundamental. When Modi and Trump talk about protecting farmers, they are talking about completely two different worlds. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine a car parking area with 250 cars parking space. Okay? Big malls like DLF Cyber Park in Gurugram can accommodate over 2000 four-wheelers and 1000 two-wheelers. Phoenix Market City in Pune has the capacity of 2500 cars. So the space for 250 cars in today's day and age is very small. Well, that's how much average land a farmer owns in India. 0.74 hectares, that's 1.8 acres or close to 80,000 square feet. That's it. Contrast this to 463 acres of land owned by an average American farmer. That is 400 times higher. In India, agriculture employs 46% of entire workforce, that's nearly half a billion people, more than the entire population of United States, and it contributes only 18% to India's GDP. In US, the agriculture employs 1.2% of total workforce in US, and this tiny workforce produces 5.5% of US GDP. This isn't just an economic difference. It is completely different conception of what agriculture means to both these countries, both these leaders and policymakers. And that's what we need to digest. For Modi or Indian planners, agriculture is about survival. It's about livelihoods. It's about ensuring farmers have enough to make a living. That has made us cautious while dealing with agriculture. But for Trump, it's about an America's hyper specialized, hyper efficient farms capturing global markets. Yes, economists love to talk about all these things: efficiency, comparative advantage, transcending from agrarian society to manufacturing and services sector oriented, so on and so forth. But frankly, it is easier said than done. Even if I'm a prime minister tomorrow, I would think twice before signing on something like this. Why? Let's understand. There are 8 broad reasons why India doesn't want to compromise on agriculture sector for the US trade deal. We will also analyze these reasons, whether they are logical or illogical or just political. Okay. The first reason is scale. We talked about the vastness of farm size and disparity between India and US. Similarly, there is a case in dairy. US has just 87 million cattle, while India has 304 million cattle population. Yes, India has way more cattle population, but the devil is always in denominator. In US, there are 10 cattle per acre of land, while in India, it's only 3. Second reason, subsidy gap. Both US and India give subsidy to their farmers. However, US does not give subsidies on inputs like seeds, fertilizers, electricity, etc., which India gives. Commercial farmers in US get over $61,000 in subsidies annually, while those in India receive only $282 a year. The 61,000 figure can be reduced down to $8,000 to $12,000 a year for small or residential farmers. And the Indian data is unfortunately not properly verified because it is difficult to get. But I'm pretty sure that Indian farmers don't make $8,000 to $12,000 per annum. So if this kind of gap exists in subsidies, US farmers already have an advantage over Indian farmers. They can produce at much cheaper cost than the Indian farmers, and that's something troubling. Third, experience of liberalization of oilseeds from the 90s. Earlier, India was self-sufficient in oilseeds. Now it imports two-thirds of its edible oil needs. That has got ingrained in policymakers and that has made them uncomfortable. Fourth, political consequences of past reforms. Modi's government has twice faced major political defeats when attempting agriculture reforms. First, in 2015-16, the land acquisition bill was withdrawn, and second, 2020-21, when the new farm laws were completely repealed. At this stage, it is a coalition government, which makes it even harder to push for these reforms. BJP does not want to take that risk. Fifth, genetically modified crops are a red line. Most US corn and soybeans are genetically modified, which India strictly prohibits importing. There are health and acceptance related reasons before this stance. Even genetically modified seeds that are produced in India are also not fully accepted in India. So forget about accepting the imported ones. Sixth, dairy's cultural sensitivities. US cattle are fed animal byproducts, and that kind of violates the Indian dietary culture and ethos. Many are vegetarian in India. Seventh, import of ethanol. India recently achieved 20% ethanol blending in petrol using domestic sugarcane and corn. Allowing cheaper US ethanol can be devastating for the farmers. A major political backlash can also come from Bihar, which produces corn at larger quantities. Also, there are upcoming elections in Bihar, so that is also a no-go. Plus, a major coalition partner is based out of Bihar. So it is again a risky proposition. Eighth is setting up a precedent. Opening agriculture to the US would force us to give similar concessions to other countries, which we don't want, because India has historically kept agriculture out of free trade agreements, and basically we want to continue that. So it's again a no-go zone. Lastly, ninth reason is that post-COVID agriculture migration. COVID-19 pandemic fundamentally altered India's agricultural employment dynamics in ways that make liberalization politically impossible for Modi. Agriculture employment increased from 44% in 2017-18 to 46% in 23-24. A reverse, which you don't want, which you should hate as a developing country. Thus, agriculture has become a livelihood for many people, and it is also a major vote bank. So no political party would, afford to lose that kind of thing at this moment. Therefore, there is a weird dependency on agriculture politically as well as economically at this stage in India, given the slowing growth rates in India and lesser opportunities in other sectors. So it is a difficult situation right now. That is India's side. I would say it is not completely illogical or completely political. There are genuine concerns. The most important thing that we should be concerned about is the dumping mechanism. So what is dumping? Dumping happens when a country sells its products in other countries at a price lower than what it actually needs to produce. For example, in 2015, US wheat was exported at 32% below its cost of production, corn at 12% below, soybeans at 10% below, and rice at 2% below. This hurts farmers in importing countries who cannot compete with such cheap food. Over time, the local economies and farming sector weakens, jobs are lost, and rural economies shrink. Local farmers lose their incomes and jobs, and that is a problem. For example, in Haiti, rice imports from US completely destroyed rice economy. Country became dependent on foreign suppliers and vulnerable when global prices rise suddenly, as happened during 2007-8 food crisis. Ironically, dumping also impacts American farmers. They often sell their crops for less than what it costs them, meaning their incomes drop. Many depend on government subsidies or non-farm activities or jobs for survival. Meanwhile, big trading corporations benefit by buying crops and controlling the export market. And those corporations can be brutal. Liberia has learned this lesson hard way during 2007-8 food price crisis, when the government was unable to pay higher prices for the wheat, which was already contracted. The trading company broke the contract, left the country, returned the money, with no wheat, and that wheat was actually essential for feeding the population. So that is again a dangerous territory. And then there are side effects too. When prices are kept low, there is little incentive for sustainable farming. Farmers overproduce, soil and water are degraded, and environmental goals become difficult to achieve. And we need to be cognizant about US overproduction. Since 1930s, the US government has given farmers crop protection, insurance, and price support programs to shield them from volatile markets. After World War II, the main goal was to keep farmers' income stable. One key tool is price support program. Farmers could take government-backed loans against their crops. If prices fell low, they could simply hand over the produce to the government without paying. This means farmers get a guaranteed minimum price no matter how much they produce. That resulted in overproduction. And to get rid of it, Eisenhower, the president, launched Public Law 480, the Food for Peace program, which sent excess production abroad as humanitarian aid. On paper, it looks good, but actually, it was dumping the extra production in other countries. That's it. Over time, what happened was larger farms benefited more from the subsidies that killed smaller farms where they had to either sell out or expand, and that led to rise of giant industrial farms which were focused on corn, soybean or wheat. It's not bad that there are large industrial farms. We need that kind of system where farms are also mechanized. But the problem was that they produce too much beyond the domestic needs. And that means there is a surplus production which needs to be exported, or it can be diverted to other sectors for ethanol, for example, or it can be given as humanitarian aid. The problem with the US agriculture is that the system is built around producing more and more and more. When prices fall, exports become a safety valve to absorb the extra supply. Trade policies and subsidies have kept this cycle going and going. Instead of stabilizing the markets, it floods the world with cheap grain. The winners are large agribusiness corporations that dominate global trade. The losers are small and mid-sized farms in US as well as in other countries. But Trump wants to ensure that US farmers can export without any hassle. And that's why he needs trade deals. Let us see some of these factors why he's behaving like this. First is voter base. The most prominent reason is Trump's vote bank. In 2016, he won 46% of popular vote but 73% of farming counties. In 2020, the popular vote rose to 46.8% and that of farming counties vote share increased to 76.1%. In 2024, the popular share increased to 50.3% while vote share in farming counties increased to 77.7%. This is staggering. And this is very important to understand why Trump is behaving like this. He cannot lose trust of farmers this time. Now, why does this matter for trade policy? Because the 444 farming dependent counties don't just vote, they produce, and not just produce for the country, they produce for the world. They grow the corn that feeds China's pigs, they grow the soybean that goes into Japanese tofu, and they grow the wheat that becomes bread in Europe. Therefore, it is very important. Second thing, trade deficit. American agriculture is facing its worst export crisis ever. For the first time since 1975, the US is running a farm trade deficit. It slipped into deficit in 2019. By 2023, imports exceeded exports by $21 billion, and the USDA now projects a record $49.5 billion deficit in FY25. Why? US farm exports have barely grown, just 1%, since last few years, while exports have grown by 6%. A strong dollar and high labor costs make American food expensive in global markets. Trade disputes, tariffs have further restricted access to key markets like China or Europe. Yes, Trump is partly to be blamed for that too. One interesting point is that it exports raw materials like soybeans, corn, beef, tree nuts, pork, etc. Those are low value items, but it imports high value items like fruits, vegetables, coffee, cocoa, something like that. Meanwhile, foreign buyers are turning to cheaper suppliers like Brazil and Argentina. That's a huge problem for states like Iowa, Nebraska, and Wisconsin, which depend on export of corn, soybean, dairy, meat, all these things. The bottom line is that American farmers urgently need new markets for their produce. And what else can be a good market than over a billion population of India? That has made Trump extra angry because we have declined that proposition. Lastly, there is another problem for Trump, and that is BRICS. If you see, right now, it feels that barring BRICS countries, all other countries have got favorable deals. He doesn't like the idea of it and he has spoken about it. But the leaders of these countries are kind of holding up together, and which is a good sign, I feel. But the problem is that we don't know what Trump feels and what he will do tomorrow. I think these are a couple of things why Trump wants the deal and why Trump is angry with India and other BRICS countries. But one thing is certain, and that we can see, is that Trump has made agriculture a forefront thing in all these deals. He understands who his voters are, but at the same time, he understands the merit of free trade or lower tariffs. Look at the deals he has cracked recently. Britain eliminated 20% tariff on American beef. The Vietnam deal was like zero tariffs on US corn and dairy products. The Japanese has also expanded purchases of American rice and soybeans. Similar things have happened in Korea and the Philippines. I think agriculture is now at the forefront of everything, and he's ready to pay the cost of not having a trade deal with India at all, which could have helped US in manufacturing sectors. His strategy isn't about America first. I believe it is about Nebraska first, Iowa first, Wisconsin first, Kansas first, something like that. This is why every trade deal that he has been negotiating starts with agriculture and probably ends due to agriculture. This is why he is willing to blow up the decades long relationships with countries like India to just secure the new market for American farmers. Otherwise, it's completely illogical to leave such a big nation like India with heavy tariffs. Right now, both the countries have directly or indirectly said that agriculture is equal to national security. And therefore, I believe no one party would be willing to compromise on this deal. I believe the US only has, some capacity to bend a bit. And if it does and embraced India, it's a good thing. It is going to be beneficial for US and India both. At least in manufacturing and services sector. We don't know about farming and other areas, but that's what we can start with. But unfortunately, we don't see things improving any further now. However, initial reactions from the farming community in the US has not been that great, but we will have to wait and watch what will happen in the next few months or few years. With regard to India, I think the stand that it has taken, acting firm and protecting the farmers, is good. But we need to think about how can we make our farmers efficient and richer in a few years. India has the entire world to make trade deals with, like for example India UK trade deal just concluded, so that's a good thing. But we have to think about what we can do for farming sector. Principally, I want to see more trade deals, better trade, and opening up of all sectors, including agriculture. But before opening up agriculture, there are a lot of things structural in agriculture sector that we need to resolve. We need to solve the problems that farmers face. And the most important problem for farmers is the government itself, because the government has regulated farms so much that now it is difficult to manage and difficult for the farmers to grow after a particular extent. Because of the last few years of farmers protest, we have lost the chance to reform anything in agriculture for at least a decade. What we can do is take baby steps to reach to the intended level of things that we want. Like for example, if we want free market for agriculture, clear the road first and then try to accommodate or try to introduce newer things. I have written 2 articles, one on what's fundamentally problematic in India's agricultural system, and the second was on the farm laws mess up, which happened last couple of years ago. I believe we have to take baby steps towards the intended reforms instead of revamping the agriculture system altogether. You can read those articles on my blog, the link is in the description. And I feel that's it for this episode. Let me know your thoughts. What other angles of this trade deal you want me to introduce or explore? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this video, please hit the like button, share this episode, and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on social media. Every link is in the description below. Thank you and see you soon.